What's up guys, Joe here, welcome back to my channel, and today we are back with more F1 2020 My Team, and of course coming off the Bahrain Grand Prix. Go and check it out if you missed it before watching this one. However, it must be said, it was a pretty terrible race weekend as a whole. Qualifying was bad, the race was bad, it just didn't go to plan, my strategy was poor. However, a big chance to make up for it in Vietnam this weekend. First though, we do have some activities to sort. You can see the sponsor headquarters I'm going for. The reason for that, I'm trying to boost a claim over some instant cash at this stage. I definitely think that's going to be more useful in the long term. We also have some weight training, so hopefully Guan Yu Zhou can pick up the pace just a little bit in the coming races. Looking now though at the upgrades, we do have just over 800 resource points. And looking at the right hand side, you can see how good we are in each department compared to each team. And to my surprise, we are the best of the Renault power units when it comes to the powertrain, ahead of both Renault and McLaren right there. We'll try and boost that a little bit more with a minor upgrade right here. Looking now though at the driver market, the reason for this is I just want to illustrate Guan Yu Zhou's ability compared to some of these drivers. In fact, really compared to the rest of the grid. Still just 69 pace, so he has some way to go before making it as a really valuable F1 driver. You can see heading to the race weekend, it's going to be sunny throughout, so no issues there. And looking at the vehicle performance update, still very close in the mid-table, the mid-tier teams. Haas really are pushing their way towards those mid-tier teams. Ferrari really doing well, almost catching Mercedes too.
I've had a chat with Carl about the new parts, and we're happy that they've been integrated into the car okay. With any luck, you'll be able to feel the improvement, so give them a try.
Cheers Jeff. Multiple upgrades coming to the car this weekend. A pretty solid practice, passing a bunch of programs. Let's get into qualifying. Here we go then, qualifying in Vietnam gets underway. Of course, it's the first Vietnam Grand Prix this weekend. Some oversteer though in both turn 1 and turn 2 of this first lap, so a very scruffy start. I am trying to learn this circuit because it is the first time I've driven it this race weekend. I put quite a few laps together in practice, but running deep, coming into the final sector too, and it really reminds me of Istanbul for some reason, this final section. A lot of short S's and then going into some longer, slightly tighter corners towards the end. It really does feel good when you hook it together. But you can see our first lap, P18. It's not a great lap though, just a few tenths ahead of Latifi. And we definitely have some time to gain on that first lap. So trying to put together a slightly cleaner lap this time around. You can see getting the traction down much better in the first sector. And heading into the final sector, obviously skipping out that massive, one of the longest straights in Formula 1. We're about 7 tenths up right now, and you can see really attacking these corners. Like I say, when you nail it, it does feel good, but it is quite difficult to do. It must be said, at least for me, I find it quite difficult. However, coming into the final 2 corners, over a second up right now on the delta, really attacking that final sector compared to the first lap. Can we improve? We're going to improve. Can we get into Q2? It's going to be close. P14, and we make it into Q2 and out of Q1 for the first time in our career. What a moment for the team and myself as a driver. Skipping to Q2 now, we did set a banker lap on some used tyres, only one fresh set of course. It was a pretty poor lap though, so I skipped it out completely, not even worth showing. However, coming onto this massive straight, this braking zone is quite hard to nail. You can brake quite late, much later than I at least thought at first. But it's really hard to pick out because obviously you're going so fast. But we're some way up on the delta on that terrible first banker lap, but still some way off Danny Kvyat's time, as you see at the top left. So not looking good for us here in Q2. Worth noting though, at this stage, Romain Grosjean is our rival at this stage of the career. I forgot to share that, but he's the man we're trying to beat for some additional acclaim. So he's in P15 right now. Can we at least beat Romain Grosjean and move us up into P15 or better? No, we can't. P16 is where we'll be starting for the Vietnam Grand Prix.
Welcome along to the Vietnamese capital of Hanoi, a vibrant city built on the banks of the magnificent Red River. Today it's the backdrop for the latest round of the Formula One World Championship, with a circuit specifically designed to encourage overtaking opportunities. I think we could be in for a cracking race today. It's a track that combines the bespoke design of a traditional race circuit with the tight, close barriers of a street track that our drivers race on today. 23 corners and a total distance of 3.4 miles. Watch out in particular for overtaking into the braking zone at turn 11. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Why don't we start by talking about Valtteri Bottas? Looks like they've got a tough race in store today, as grid penalties from changing power unit components has forced them further down the field.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a more aggressive approach today to make up for the compromised start.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Vettel, Verstappen, Alexander Albon, and Stroll, Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz, and Lando Norris. Bottas, they've taken a grid penalty. Kvyat, Esteban Ocon, and Giovinazzi. Grosjean, Iceman, George Russell, and Kevin Magnussen. Raikkonen, Gasly, Joe, and Nicholas Latifi. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
So a pretty standard grid order. However, you do see Bottas does have a grid penalty. Will be interesting to see him trying to come through the field today. I have tried to utilize the hard tyre in the first two races. Didn't work out for us in Australia, so we're going to go more aggressive today with the soft, medium, soft strategy. That means we'll be finishing the race on the fastest tyre, so hopefully we'll be flying through the fields at that point. We'll underfuel the car a little bit as well, as I do before each race. This should be a good one as we head to 5 red lights for the first Vietnamese Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go, and we actually get a half decent launch. As you can see, a much better launch than Giovinazzi ahead of us, and we switch from the right to the left of the road to the inside line heading into turn 1, and that is a fantastic start up to P11 momentarily, but Kvyat and Bottas just edge ahead of us right there. You can see Bottas did of course have a grid penalty, and I think this is the first time we've seen a Mercedes on track. However, looking in our mirrors, you can see Grosjean and Ocon right on our tail. I'm going to play it quite defensive into the roundabout section coming up ahead. Bottas side by side with Kvyat, and I think we actually got tapped up the rear there by Esteban Ocon, but looking up ahead, Valtteri Bottas sailing around the outside of the AlphaTauri, and they're still side by side heading into the long back straight. Ocon and Grosjean side by side as well. We're just going to sit in for now, not use too much ERS. You can see Ocon and Grosjean's not really closing on us as much as I expected, so we don't really want to challenge Valtteri Bottas ahead of us. Of course, we're not going to beat the Mercedes in this race, so it'll be pointless for both of our races to really engage in a challenge right there. Instead, we can try and sit behind him as he now overtakes Danny Kvyat, Ocon as well ahead of Grosjean as we move on to lap 2. And really my goal at this stage of the race is just to stay with Kvyat ahead. The AlphaTauri, the Renault, all the cars around us are definitely quicker on paper, so if I'm able to just stay with these guys, stay in their DRS, which is so powerful around here by the way, that is perfect for me. So you can see I actually put the car into lean at the end of this back straight. I could have probably attacked Kvyat there. In the end, choosing not to, choosing to kind of play the long game at this race. And maybe pounce on Kvyat and Ocon later in the race. For now though, our goal is just to stay with these guys. So moving on to lap 3 and the first sector, following Kvyat closely too as we get our first DRS of the race. And I really struggle with the exit of this corner. My line coming in really poor right there, and you can see Ocon right on our gearbox right now. We're having to play it defensively on board with Esteban Ocon going around the outside, but we are the latest of the late breakers right there, outbraking Ocon and holding onto that position. Would have been a pretty audacious move to be fair around the outside, but in the DRS of Kvyat, and oh my word, almost actually collecting Danny Kvyat right there into that end hairpin. Ocon looking around the outside right here. We're going to have to play it defensively coming into this next corner, which we do, holding the inside line right there, allowing Ocon no room at all to make a move. So you can see right here on board with Kvyat looking behind, we were actually so close to losing our front wing right there. And for now, on lap 4, we're doing a decent job, staying with Kvyat ahead. P13, we're doing a very decent job this race compared to at least Bahrain, but again, a very poor exit this time. I'm really expecting Ocon to come right up to my gearbox, but if we take a look, as I ran wide, you can see Ocon trying to shape up a move, but losing the rear end, a right tank slapper right there for the Frenchman, and Grosjean actually really closing in on the Renault, and they were side by side for quite a while, but Ocon did hold it around the outsides at that hairpin. But what that mistake has done, it has allowed us to really get that 1 second gap on Ocon. He's obviously now out of our DRS, and as I've said, the DRS around here is so powerful, and as that happens, you can see the gap to Kvyat 1.1. we just lost DRS right there, and at the end of the straight, 1.6 seconds to Kvyat, so half a second for Daniel Kvyat right there, just being in the DRS of the car ahead. So powerful around this track. And heading onto lap 6, we've lost that DRS from Kvyat and Sainz ahead, 2 seconds to the Russian right now, but holding the gap to Ocon, so our pace is decent, just the DRS not really pulling us along with the cars ahead. And almost 4 seconds, 3.5 seconds to Giovinazzi, who has now overtaken Grosjean behind Ocon. So for now, we're holding stations in this Grand Prix, holding down P13, doing a pretty decent job. However, onto lap 7, you can see 2.6 seconds now to Kvyat. Our pace is dropping off as these tyres start to wear. Maybe we need to work on our tyre wear compared to the teams around us.
The gap to the car ahead is 2.6 seconds.
Cheers, Jeff. And you can see Ocon closing the gap almost within that 1 second barrier. But I'm not too worried. The Renault much quicker than our car on paper as we move on to lap 9. And some of the leaders are now making their first stops. You can see Hamilton in the pits. We've opened up a decent lead on Ocon on that previous lap, but you can see yellow flags behind, back to green for now, so okay, don't need to worry about that. Let's just try and keep this gap to Ocon. But now we have Giovinazzi out of the race, and the safety car, the full safety car, has been deployed here on lap 9, and Giovinazzi, you can see, pulling off in a very dangerous region right there. So of course, under safety car conditions, our pit window had just opened anyway. We're going to dive into the pit lane. And what tyres do we put on here? Do we stick to our original strategy? Because this is timed quite nicely to move onto the hard compound tyre. And you can see that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. We chuck on the hards. Clearly I like this hard compound a bit too much. And we've gone for it yet again for the 3rd race in a row. I really wanted to try going for the faster tyres, but the safety car coming out really did open this up to us. And of course, now we don't need to make any additional stops at this race. So now let's take a look at Lewis Hamilton, who has made a stop, and he should rejoin behind the safety car. What has just happened? Hamilton hits the safety car, loses part of his front wing, and that actually means Hamilton is going to have to make an additional stop. So 2 stops basically in the space of 2 laps to change that front wing, and he will drop all the way to the back of the grid. But quickly here, you can see everyone's tyre choices and a real mix of strategies, so going to be very interesting. We have quite a few soft runners, including my teammate, but Kvyat, Sainz and Ocon around me, as well as Perez, Ricciardo, Vettel and Verstappen all have opted for the harder compound tyre. We will all be running to the end, so Kvyat, Sainz and Ocon are really the drivers we can judge ourselves against. We of course jumped Sainz in the pits as he waited for his teammate Lando Norris. And so on to lap 12, we cross the start finish line, we are racing again, the safety car has come in, and yeah, like I said, Kvyat, Sainz and Ocon are really our rivals in this race, all in faster cars on paper. So if we can just stay with these guys, this is a really good race for us. We're in a decent position because those guys ahead on the soft tyres do need to make another stop of course, so hopefully we can stay ahead of them when they make their additional pit stop and then really act as a roadblock in this slower car, trying to block them off and hold our position to the end of the race. That's the plan in theory, but you can see Ocon and Sainz really battling behind, and there are some soft compound runners right behind them. I think the likes of Grosjean and Gasly, and you can see Grosjean has now got past, but that has cost Ocon and Sainz a heap of time. We now have 3.5 seconds on those guys. I'm doing a decent job just staying with Kvyat and Perez ahead, although not a good exit from that corner right there. But of course, our goal is just to stay with their DRS as long as possible. However, talking of DRS, on lap 16 we do drop out of that Kvyat 1 second barrier, and of course that will allow Kvyat and Perez to cruise away. As we take a look at the front of the race, it's a Ferrari 1-2 right now, with Vettel in second on the hards, Leclerc and the likes of Alex Albon having to make that second stop. As you see, Albon making that stop right now, and you can see our teammate Guan Yu Zhou will come out ahead of Alex Albon, so maybe our teammate can really help us out in this race and slow down some of those soft compound runners. Anyhow, lap 17, Kvyat and Perez really have gotten away, and Kvyat actually overtaken the pink Mercedes up ahead.
Okay, gap ahead is 3.1 seconds.
As Jeff says, they have really gotten away right now, but now we have the likes of Norris, Stroll, Gasly and our teammate making that stop, and we are up to P7 at this point in the race. Even Charles Leclerc, who was leading, now exiting the pit lane, and on lap 18 you can see Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque, coming out just ahead of us, so hopefully he can pull us along, but surely that Ferrari is going to be far too quick for us to stay on fresh compound tyres as well. But lap 18,
Sainz is behind you. Our gap behind is 0.8 seconds. They're on old hards. Their tyres are 8 laps old. The time last lap was a 1 minute 41.4.
so Sainz behind, closing in on us, the same as Ocon at this stage. We don't have the DRS aids of Perez and Kvyat anymore, and Sainz and Ocon of course are in faster cars, so we're doing our best to hold this gap. But on to lap 19 now. 1:41.4 is what Jeff said is the time we need to try and match Sainz. I'm really struggling to do that on these harder tyres. Sainz naturally closing up to us on the end of lap 19, as Hamilton making his way through the field, but he will now make his additional stop, I think his third stop of this race. He's going to drop right back down the order yet again. But lap 20, Carlos Sainz fighting us for P8 in this Grand Prix. We're going to try and hold this one around the outside, not play it too defensive, because so crucial to have a good roundabout section and really get a good exit on to the back straight. But you can see Alex Albon making a move on, I think that is Esteban Ocon behind us, and so that will help us out, costing Ocon some time, but Albon will be on our gearbox in almost no time at all. But anyhow, talking of on our gearbox, Carlos Sainz absolutely flies past us here on lap 20. Nothing I could do. I used all my ERS on the previous laps, and you can see completely empty on this one, and it's put us in some difficulty. But looking behind, you can see Norris has actually overtaken Albon and Ocon on that back straight. Really, I think that the DRS on that back straight is just too powerful. You don't really need anything else other than slipstream. But
You're dropping a second a lap to the car behind. 1 second.
yeah, lap 22, we're really struggling compared to the pace of the cars behind right now. Norris and Albon on fresh mediums compared to our old hards. Valtteri Bottas on lap 22, 6 laps left in this Grand Prix, exits the pits right ahead of us on soft compound tyres. He will be making a charge for the leads, but Lando Norris up our inside. We're going to squeeze the Brits really tight on the inside line. Can we maybe get a switch back on the Brit right here? He's got past us right now, but a very nice little double switchback maneuver, and a bit argy-bargy right there, really pushing our way through on Lando Norris. Not the cleanest overtake of my life, but we'll make it stick for now. But of course, Lando Norris and Albon both getting DRS. We've got no ERS left. We're going to do our best to hold that inside line. Norris gets boxed in, but Alex Albon absolutely flies past us on the outside right there, as I tried to go to the outside line and take the racing line, but Norris had other ideas and he was there before me. I didn't really realise, and anyhow, we do make more contact here with Lando Norris. You can see Albon absolutely streaking up the road as soon as he gets past us, and you can see 2.5 seconds up the road on the next lap. We're trying to hold off Lando Norris and Esteban Ocon. We're still in P10 here, 5 laps left, and we're on course for our first points in our career, or single point of our career. I'm not going to give this position up easily, that is for sure. But Norris and Ocon, of course, do get the DRS advantage. And again, really poor exit by me out of the roundabout. Norris cruises up to the back of our car, and I really squeeze him again. not allowing him too much room. I said I wouldn't allow him past too easily, but he's through for now. Nothing we can do right there. We try and send one. No room, and Lando Norris up into P10, and that could well be the last we see of any points in this Grand Prix. You can see right there, squirming on the exit, and that will allow Ocon to try and look around the outside. Not the first time in this Grand Prix he's tried to move on us right there, but you can see Ocon, Stroll, and I think it's Lewis Hamilton will soon be chasing us down. You can see on the mini-map, he's on the soft compound as well, the medium compound. He will be fast in the latter stages of this Grand Prix, but here we go. Ocon and Stroll now cruising past us. Look at that. With the DRS aid, we try and send one again up the inside of Lance Stroll. Not really room for two cars to go side by side right there. And Ocon is now gone. No chance we can catch him. We'll try and stay with Stroll, but our tyres really have gone at this stage. Or actually, to be fair, they haven't gone. I'm just struggling with pace compared to these guys. I tried to hold them off as long as possible and really tried to use the cars ahead and their DRS to our advantage, but onto lap 25 you can see we drop out the DRS of Ocon and Stroll ahead, and you can see another Renault, Ricciardo. He's dropped back in this Grand Prix, and onto the next lap you can see he's been passed by both of those cars ahead. Jeff will tell us right now he is slow, and he did have some, I think, mechanical issues, but it did seem as we progressed through this Grand Prix that they seemed to go away for Ricciardo just as he dropped outside the points. And those guys fighting over P10 are tantalisingly close, but as we head onto lap 27 we just don't quite have the pace to fight with them guys until the end of this Grand Prix. However, at least one more fight, because you can see Lewis Hamilton on the soft compound tyre. He won't score points at this Grand Prix. He's trying to make a late charge to Ocon, Ricciardo and Lance Stroll ahead, and again he will cruise right past us. I had to use all my ERS earlier in the race, or at least it felt like I did, to try and hold some of those guys off as soon as I lost DRS on the cars ahead. And yeah, it really puts us in some difficulties in the latter stages of this race. However, Sebastian Vettel crosses the line to win his first Grand Prix of the season. What a win for the German, and that's actually 2 wins for Ferrari in 3 races so far, so very different start for them compared to real life. However, we will cruise home, making a few mistakes. Concentration has gone, head's gone here. I thought we had points today. In the end, we will finish P14 in Vietnam, holding off Gasly for a decent race result.
Alright, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
Well, they've done a brilliant job, I must say, under some intense pressure to take a well-earned victory here at the Vietnam Grand Prix. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
Without a doubt, the safety car changed everything today. The key to their success was keeping calm and reacting to the situation quickly. We've seen teams in the past throw away wins because they were too hesitant, but here they were decisive, and that's allowed them to take the advantage.
Ferrari are at it again, an excellent performance at today's Grand Prix, and they're certainly a team that know what they're doing out there.
So there it is guys, Vettel, Verstappen and Bottas on the podium in the end. We did actually have a few 5-second penalties. Ricciardo got one as well, you may notice. He actually just finished 2 tenths ahead of us. We would have gained that position had we not made that error in the final sector. But anyhow guys, we gave it a good go. Maybe it was the wrong decision again to go onto the hard tyre. However, we had track position, the field were bunched up, and I felt like when it came down to genuine pace in this Grand Prix, we didn't quite have it compared to some of the cars around us. We gave it a good fight. We were in the points for a long time in this Grand Prix, but as soon as the likes of Albon, even the likes of Norris, and of course the likes of Hamilton later on, as soon as those guys were on fresher tyres and their car performance really came through, we just had no chance on that back straight defending from those guys. So still looking for our first points, but we do beat Grosjean slightly in the rivalry right here, taking it to 4-4 after losing out to him in qualifying. So this could be a close battle with the Frenchman over the next 6 races. Of course, gaining some decent acclaim today as well. Guan Yu Zhou, not with the best result, He's really struggling to show the same pace as me, it seems, throughout. Of course, he did beat us in Bahrain, but hoping Joe can improve over the next few races. Bit more cash in the bank as well, so all good stuff right here. There it is then, guys. The first Vietnam Grand Prix is complete, and I like to think we made a good go of it. First time out of Q1 and into Q2 despite not really turning up in Q2. That was a nice moment for the team. We had a great first lap, as you'll see right here, diving down the insides of Giovinazzi and a few other guys, the likes of Ocon as well. Really nice move right there into turn 1. We tried to hold it throughout the race. I'm not really sure if the safety car helped us or didn't help us in the end. I guess it shakes things up, which really does help the lower cars. But yeah, couldn't quite hold on to a point scoring position, and still on the lookout for those first points for the team and myself as a driver. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed the third episode of my team career here on F1 2020. I am absolutely loving this game, loving this series. Hope you guys are enjoying it as well. I've played a few races ahead. We have China up next, which should be a very enjoyable one. Then we head to the Netherlands for Zandvoort, of course, for the first time in a very long time. So that should be a fun one as well. And I absolutely loved driving that track. So we definitely have some very fun episodes coming up, and I hope you guys are looking forward to them. Anyhow, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, remember to drop a like. Really helps the channel out. Let me know what you thought in the comments below as well. Do subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next one.